Marissa Ortega asks,
since the economy in America is doing so poorly, a lot of people after graduation move back with their parents. In South Korea, do people live with their parents for a long time? Is this normal? Or when do they leave? After they get married or if they get a job or whatnot?
Get a job!
You dirty freeloaders!
If you want to see that concert with the Bieber!
I think the first thing that we need to address here is the real estate market in South Korea because it's very different than what we're used to in North America.
oh yeah.
I remember when I was in university, I actually moved out of my house and I wound up living in an apartment and I had to pay rent for that. It was like $500 a month.
Yeah, you had a roommate. So
I had a roommate as well.
The two of you split it.
Yeah.
And that was...
You pay first and last month rent as a deposit and you pay monthly rent.
Yeah, and then you pay for your like electricity and gas and all that jazz.
In South Korea though, the situation is very, very different. It's very difficult for students to move out of their homes because you don't just pay first and last month rent when it comes to apartments. You pay something like 20 months rent.
You have to put down a deposit in advance on top of the rent, and that deposit's called key money. And the key money, like the cheapest we've seen is like $10,000.
$10,000.
Dollars, guys.
It goes up to like
$20,000.
$20,000, $50,000, sometimes even $100,000 depending on the location.
It's insanity.
So then it's a lot more difficult for university students to come up with like $10,000 cash. While in North America, it's a lot cheaper to put down a deposit. Here, it's extremely prohibitive.
Yeah, I would say, you said university students, but I think that not even university students, like even like young married couples or like, I mean, do you just have like, oh, I just have 10 grand lying around in savings so that I can move out. And a 10 grand apartment would be a small apartment.
Tiny.
Like if you guys look back at our videos from Bucheon, our very first apartment that we lived in, that had a $10,000 deposit.
And that was way outside of Seoul.
It's just kind of like how if you live in a major city in any part of the world, things are more expensive. So people have to move out further if they want to get a place. But still, you have this money lying around, $10,000?
So the situation between North America and South Korea is very different in terms of how long you wind up staying with your parents. So here, it's a lot more acceptable to stay with your parents for a long time.
Because frankly, it's not feasible to move out.
Impossible!
So the second part of the question, you asked, do they live with them until they get married or get a job? Or like, things are a little bit different in that situation as well. So for example, if you get married, there are some situations in Korea where one person's family should actually put down that key money deposit. That's kind of like the deal that your family's doing. It's like a dowry almost,
so
right?
Here's your wedding present. We're gonna get you an apartment fully furnished and we're gonna pay for all of that. That's a pretty kick-ass wedding present, I would say.
I actually disagree with you on that one because one family will try to put down the key money deposit and then the other family will pay for the furniture.
Still, I love you, mom and dad, but you didn't get me an apartment with furniture when I got married.
However, what kind of sucks about that is that it puts major pressure on your parents. Like if you have kids, you are supporting them to live in the house, even if they're older, if they're like in their 20s, they don't have to move out because they can't move out.
Right.
Then when they get married, you're like, now is the time that they're going to move out because they're married and I have to put down this money to help them move out and continue with their marriage life. So that's a lot of pressure from the parents, right?
I think the one thing that also has to be considered here is that being a parent in Korea is extremely financially stressful because parents are expected to pay for a lot for their kids. Like they're paying for their wedding, they're paying for them to have a house, they're paying for them to move out. We even know many situations in which after kids are married, their parents still support them after being married.
Now, I will say that a lot of European cultures have a similar thing. It's acceptable for the kids to move back in with the parents or to even buy houses that are like beside each other to try to keep everything nearby. So I think some cultures have similar strong family approaches, but I know that in North America, there can be a stigma against that kind of thing. But the stigma of like having to move out and be independent and get your own place, that stigma does not exist in Korea. You're not gonna meet someone who's 23 or 24 and you're gonna say, what do you mean you don't have your own place? Like you didn't move out yet? Like your parents still make supper for you? Like that's weird. That kind of stigma would not happen here. Now, there is a term called kangaroo-jo, which means people who could definitely move out now. Like maybe people who are in their late 30s or their 40s who have a stable job. And they could have saved money and they could have put that money towards moving out and getting their own place. But the kangaroo-jo term is that like they refuse to leave the pouch of the mother.
Freeloading.
Freeloading. So there is actually a point in Korean culture where parents might feel like, okay, this is a burden, especially because people are spending the money on whatever they want. So they're not necessarily paying rent with their parents or helping to pay for food.
We know of a girl that works for a very prestigious company and she's an adult and she still lives with her parents and she spends all of her paycheck buying hundreds of copies of CDs to support her favorite K-pop group, which is just absurd.
Yeah, because if you buy lots of copies of a CD, we don't mean like 5, we mean like 200, 300.
Literally, like over 100. This girl literally buy over 100.
So if you do that, you're supporting a group and you also get like better passes to go and meet them. And this is like, you're not paying rent, you're not paying for food. Yeah. And even when her parents tried to approach her on this topic, it was kind of like, it's my money, I'll spend it like I want.
And I'd be like, It's your money. It's your money. You pay rent. You get out of my house.
Right. So like that whole attitude of like, if you're under my house, like they're my rules, and like this is what you have to move out of you. That kind of like threat, I feel like it's kind of like North American, or at least like maybe it's Canadian or something. Like if I went out and spent my money on tons of stuff that was like ridiculous, and I tried to sass my parents about that, my parents would have been like, okay, guess who's now putting their money towards paying for an apartment of their own.
It's also quite common for kids that are still living with their parents to actually have their parents' credit card. And we're not talking about teenagers, but we're talking about adults living with their parents, still using their parents' credit card.
So then you think, okay, well then how are you going out with your friends and spending money? Like, where are you getting this money from? They're given their parents' card to use, and that's okay with them.
And there's no stigma behind it. There's no impetus to be independent, because the idea is like, well, why would I be independent if my parents will give me money for everything I want? Like,
now I know that we're getting that like
I'm getting the itches and the
So we're putting that tone on, like we're putting a judgmental tone on because we didn't grow up with that, right? So for us, our parents would never give us their credit card. They didn't have the money to give you the credit card and go and spend stuff like.
I've never seen my parents' credit card. Never touched it once.
No, and so we're feeling that kind of itchiness of like independent feeling that we grew up with, right? I feel like breaking into some Destiny's Child now, but I can't. But but the point is that we get the itchies, right? Because there is a stigma in North America that says, don't you feel ashamed? Like, how could you do that? You should get a job. That stigma doesn't exist here, so you wouldn't judge your friend over it. Some people in Korea that are Korean do, however, have that feeling of independence where they want to get a job and they want to go out there and they want to make their own money.
We're not saying that everybody in Korea does this, but it is common.
I would say the living at home with your parents is the majority. We actually have some stats that we're going to be putting in our blog post because I don't want to mess them up here, but
there's a significant portion, so make sure you click on the link here so you could read the blog post and get a lot of the statistics that we didn't mention here because we're just talking about it generally in this video.
So here's my question that I have for you guys here. I'm curious about what your culture and your upbringing is like. So for example, is there a stigma towards being not independent? Do people look down on you if you don't have a part-time job? Is it like, well, what do you mean you're getting an allowance? Or is it culturally acceptable? Is there a kind of like more of a family culture where your parents take care of you for as long as they possibly can until you go out and then you take care of your parents? What's it like where you grow up?
For last week's TLDR, we were talking about Koreanized foreign food and we got a bunch of awesome comments in the comment section. The first one is someone we didn't mention in our video from TPauling09. They said, what about Chinese food? Jjajangmyeon is not Chinese food.
You know why we didn't talk about Chinese food? Because I don't feel like there is Chinese food in Korea.
No.
So like to me, it's like when we talk about Koreanized version of foreign food, I'm like, this is pizza and it's Koreanized, but jjajangmyeon is just not Chinese to me.
Jjajangmyeon is debatable. Supposedly, like people told us it's from North China, so it is Chinese. It's just not the Chinese that we grew up with in North America.
Or any of the Chinese people I've ever met. I mean, apparently, I don't know. But we also did a whole video on Chinese food where we talked about that, so you can find that video and look at our jjajangmyeon video. The next comment was from, not being biased, but Martina Paletti.
That's a pretty awesome name.
You beautiful name, you. She is a legit Italian, and she had a bunch of interesting things to say. One of them being that garlic bread, which she said she loves, is apparently not Italian, and they do not eat it in like pasta restaurants in Italy.
My mind is blown. Please tell me that no.
So it's like a North American thing.
Really?
Well, when I went to Italy, we didn't have garlic bread either. We also had really thin pizza that had like whole pieces of meat on it and olives that weren't pitted, and I bit into it and I was like, olives have the pit.
Italian? And the last comment is a really, really awesome comment on our blog from Saturday Night Wrist.
Which, pause a second, great Deftones song, and I like your icon because it's the cover art of a Deftones album.
Now, it's a bit too long for us to get into the details in this video, but they left a very interesting history of Korean food, talking about why it handles flavors the way that it does in terms of both geography and both in terms of like its merchant history and whatnot.
It's like a little mini essay, so you have to check it out.
It's extremely intriguing. It's a featured comment on our site right now, so make sure you check out the blog post if you want to read more about Korean food. It's really cool.
And now to end this TLDR about freeloading, I'm gonna go play with my friend Jackie, who's visiting from Canada. Technically America, she lives in New York, but she's Canadian and I'm not gonna work all day. La, 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 la.
You freeloader! You leave all the editing to me! La, la, la. La, 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 la. Why don't any of my friends come? Because I don't have any friends.
Joe already came. Your friend already came. Your friend already came. Your friend already came.
Get a freeload. Wait. What did I say?
You didn't even have a job when he visited. I was working as a teacher and you were trying to be a blogger and we had no job. Forgot about that.